It's not exactly surprising to open up the server browser in Payday 3 nowadays and be met with the majority of the games going on with that red circle next to them, while the blue square is almost nowhere to be seen. Stealth in Payday 3 isn't engaged with by much of the player base, and there's quite a few reasons for that, aside from the simple fact that going into a massive shootout is more fun to most people than pretending to be somebody taking out alone and secretly sneaking into the vault. But putting that aside, the premise isn't the big issue that Payday 3's stealth has, but rather the way it's executed, making it feel far too much like a session of trial and error. The biggest appeal of stealth to a lot of people, myself included, is the amount of agency it allows you to have. After all, if nobody even knows you're there, how can they possibly stop you? Before I go into what I think would benefit stealth in terms of changes, I want to go over what it already does well, because it actually does a lot with mechanics like camera hacking and being able to feedback loop them or use them and mark guards, both being something to work towards if you're a new player and also a way to circumvent something that gave you trouble previously. That's without talking about the multitude of ways you can theoretically go about stealthing heists, as some of them allow you to go through most, or in some cases all of the heist without ever needing to put on your mask, giving an innate sense of satisfaction for overcoming the heist without ever pulling out a firearm. The social stealth can somewhat trivialize bits of heist, especially in cases where you get a fake VIP invite that cuts the amount of areas you trespass in half, but the reward in a lot of cases does feel worthwhile. In Payday 3, there's technically two kinds of stealth you can engage with. Social stealth, or what's called maskless in this case, working similarly to Hitman, and mask-up stealth, working more like your traditional Metal Gear Solid or Splinter Cell instead. It might sound like a lot to manage, trying to balance these two styles of stealth at once, and to be fair, it somewhat is, even if some maps effectively make it so you only have one option, like Party Powder or the reworked Turbid Station. Focusing on maskless stealth for the moment, since this is likely what people experience first, you'll see two things to take note of. One being this little bit of text that says how many radios you have left until the alarm goes off. Radios are essentially a hard limit on how many guards you can remove from the map, with the number decreasing the higher your difficulty. This is simultaneously the biggest challenge and greatest annoyance in stealth, as it heavily limits what you're capable of doing and how much agency you really have, turning what could be an interesting game of sneaking around and carefully emptying the map of patrols into a signpost simulator. The other thing you'll notice when starting maskless is the small public area text. This signifies what will happen to you when you're caught. You can't get caught in a public area unless you're observed doing something the game classifies as an illegal action, signified by this red exclamation point. If you're caught in a private area, guards will simply escort you out to a public area without any hassle so long as you stay inside their circle. Get caught in a secure area though, which is easier since guards can hear you running nearby, and the nearest guard will run to your exact position to try and put handcuffs on you before calling in searching mode, and since there's no way to escape the cuffs on your own, you can't really let that happen. This is also what guards will try and do whenever they see you doing something illegal. They will just try and put you in handcuffs and then call in searching. If a civilian sees you doing these, your options are to either kill them if you don't want to mask up, or going ahead masking up to handle them, now being able to intimidate and tie them up. If you're caught while masked up, unlike when you're maskless, guards will draw their weapon and try to shoot you, which, given that their weapons aren't silenced, you either have to intimidate them, after getting the skill for it of course, or shoot them first, grabbing and hiding the body somewhere and answering their radio. The reworked heists have also added in these specific spots to hide bodies in, which I find interesting and think could be used for more than a guaranteed safe alternative to just shoving a guard's corpse into a bathroom stall. Especially because there's also other options in heists like Turbid Station, as I mentioned before, where you can just toss a guard off a cliff face or into an ocean for them to never be seen again, therefore removing the point of even having these. I'll be proposing a point to keep these around, but that part's for later. Lastly, in terms of what Payday 3 stealth offers is the options you have in terms of your equipment to give you an advantage in terms of planning stealth out. There's the 5 tools, of which only one is really unusable for stealth, that being the infrasonic mine, but each one has its own niche use. Trip lasers can keep track of a heavily trafficked spot for you, which can also be done with the motion sensor to be fair, but the motion sensor has the benefit of permanently keeping whatever NPC is stuck onto marked unless they're killed, meaning that's one less thing to worry about as you move all the bags to the secure point. Micro cameras can serve a similar purpose, allowing you to keep an eye on specific hallways or rooms more generally, and or enemies in spots you frequently traverse, like this pair of hallways in Syntax Air that I frequently move bags through, or the entire warehouse in Party Powder. Lastly is the ECM Jammer, which has the least amount of use in stealth with a skill rework in place, as without the cam distortion skill, this tool is far less useful than in the past, only really serving to make cameras and guards detect you far slower than before. But it does still have a use as a makeshift panic button in very particular cases, while also just being generally useful in any heist that has die packs to worry about. Of which there are 2 in total. Great. The other piece of equipment that can heavily affect your stealth strategy somewhat ties into this, with that being your armor frame. 3 of the 6 current armor frames in the game have use both in loud, but more importantly for this stadio, have use in stealth. The one-plate medtech frame has use by being the lightest frame, giving you the fast movement speed, even if it's by a slight margin. The Specialist and Saboteur frames are more interesting in what they change with their passives though, as they allow you to have an extra tool and effectively unlimited lures or stuns via throwables respectively. The tools I've already gone over, but the infinite throwables via one being replenished every 15 seconds is useful for giving you access to knives you can throw to lure guards or silent flash grenades to temporarily stun them depending on how you want to go about things. Personally, I prefer knives because of both having a lethal option for being unmasked, but also because the luring can be invaluable on occasion. All of this is great so far, but in practice, the system is far too frustrating to call good thanks to multiple factors, most particularly the pager limit. When there's a hard limit to how many guards you can kill, that doesn't always translate to the number of mistakes you can make in the heist, instead becoming more of a question of how few different ways you can actually go about the heist. For example, in a heist like Touch the Sky, it'd be far more satisfying to one by one get rid of all the guards and fully clear out the map so you can worry about objectives without much hassle, but that's not possible thanks to the limited amount of radios you can use up. Should the radios be removed? Well, no, but the fact of the matter is they cause something that makes any stealth system frustrating, and that's a low ceiling for guaranteed failure. Something else that coincides with this poisonous design philosophy is the lead guard that every Payday 3 player absolutely loathes. The lead guard is very simple. His radio goes off infinitely every 90 seconds. That's the problem. His radio goes off infinitely, meaning if he dies or catches you doing more than just trespassing at any point in the heist, it's game over. I don't think I need to explain why that isn't fun. The other modifier-related bit of trouble the stealth system runs into is server score, where the amount of runtimes you can apply to hacked cameras doesn't even matter as it resets every runtime after 5 seconds, meaning that the whole skill of looping cameras or making them mark guards for you is effectively worthless. I've said before and I'll say again that the simplest solution and the easiest to this modifier is to simply cut the player's runtimes in half. Do they start with 4 runtimes? Cut it down to 2. Done. Game made harder. If only changing the pager system was so easy. The radios and the searching mechanic are where the meat of the changes I'd make to the system lie. Like I mentioned before, I'm not going to get rid of the pager system, but rather build on it and make it reward the player for correcting their mistakes. Remember those body hiding locations I mentioned Starbreeze added in their newer reworked heists? Well, those, along with other locations like the side of the stock exchange, the ocean, or a manhole. I said like a manhole. Okay, here's Agent 47 giving an actual example. When a body is successfully put into a hiding spot, whether it be a marked box or an ocean, then the player would theoretically be given back the pager they had to use to take out that guard. It's busy work to an extent, but still far preferable to being one step closer to failure for trying to clear a room, or even take out the camera system. Although thinking about it, it may be better to keep the reverting radios to only the body hiding spots, since there are a limited amount of those, and there is an unlimited amount of ocean, so that would kind of be a little bit unbalanced. You're probably wondering what this would mean in the case of the lead guard. After all, you can't put him in a hiding spot due to his radio going off infinitely, so he'd still be a guaranteed loss, right? Well, that's where the other change to the radios comes in, and that's with the searching mechanic. In the current game, searching effectively makes all the guards move a bit faster and randomizes their pathing, making them much more difficult to predict. Let's say you entered searching after answering the lead guard's radio enough times. Well, let's also say you answered it again while in searching, but instead of failing, a nearby guard in, say, a 35-meter radius comes to check out where the radio went off. That would be much more preferable to just instantly failing, but the incoming guard would still have a chance to catch you. In order to balance this, I think it'd be fair to say that killing this guard that shows up will instantly set off the alarm, at least if you do it before he's finished checking the room that you answered the radio in. After that, it's fair game. However, this is all assuming you're engaging with the pagers, as a theoretical skill based on solution to this would probably be something in the Puppet Master tree, where if you ace the scare tactics skill and intimidate a guard, there could be a chance his pager doesn't actually go off. The requirements for the pager not going off via intimidation could be more strict, like intimidation before it being detected, or needing the skill in an active ECM jammer, or give it a limit of 2 per heist or something, but a skill to circumvent pagers like a skill to circumvent cameras would be very nice to have. But why scare tactics specifically? Well, for 2 reasons. One is to add a very powerful stealth skill to a page that isn't one that already has very many stealth skills, therefore creating a shakeup in terms of how people make their builds. Secondly, is to give the player reasonable power at a reasonable cost. After all, spending about 20% of your skill points for that alone would be well worth the trouble, but also make you question what all you can afford to have on your build. Do you give up lockpicks, double bags, what else? That's the kind of design that Skills 2.0 should thrive in, and this would help to give it that. Another thing that should be questioned a bit more is your tool usage, mostly because in a lot of cases their abilities are severely underbaked without any sort of skill investment, and in the case of the ECM jammer, just isn't possible in the game anymore thanks to Skills 2.0. So I think a few simple adjustments can be done, since these things don't see that much use in most cases, starting with one that's universal for all tools. Making the old skill, Full Recall, a base ability. Simply put, this would let you pick tools back up so long as they're not partially or fully used. This had a lot of use in the original skill system with ECM jammers due to how you combine them with the cam distortion skill, but that can still have use now with the micro cameras. If you're done in a room, you grab your micro camera, get to a new vantage point, and put the camera back up where it's more useful. This would also be helpful for things like accidentally placing a trip laser wrong so it doesn't actually mark anything, or just misplacing a tool in general. The one change to all tools in general that's more of a quality of life change than anything else aside, I think each of the tools should get some love individually as well, including the infrasonic mine, even if this is a stealth video. That little thing will get some love eventually, but not today. Focusing on the micro camera, this one is the easiest one to get a change, and it's very simply being able to use the security expert skill, which effectively uses a single runtime to make the affected camera mark all guards or cops in sight. Very simple to understand. It's your own controllable trip lasers with a bit more leniency for costing multiple skill points, and gives the player more knowledge and control over the heist when they bring it. Really, I don't understand why the game doesn't allow you to mark guards with your own micro cameras automatically, but it allows it with the regular cameras instead. Similarly, in terms of changes being simple, is the motion sensor. What people don't know about it is that it has a maximum of 30 marks per placement, while the trip laser has an infinite amount of marks instead. Really, all the motion sensor would need to make it more relevant is a bit of a tooltip saying it permanently marks whoever it's stuck onto, and making the mark count infinite like the trip laser. It's already limited in the fact that whatever it marks doesn't stay marked after leaving the proximity, so give it something more than permanent stealth marking. The third tool here that needs some small adjustment that's more like placing an old skill onto it is the ECM jammer, as without the ability to block cameras, it really doesn't have that much use in stealth anymore, which is a shame since it was very useful for heists that had Cerberus core back with the original skill system. So simply what I'd have done with this, similarly to applying full recall to all tools, would be having cam distortion be default for ECM jammers. Theoretically, you could get up to 3 ECM jammers in your build at once and block up to 7 separate cameras, but that's 1, without Cerberus core active, and 2, limiting your tool choice and armor frame choice in your build since the other tools would be more transparently good options as well. That's the thing here. The player should have options that have uses, but equal drawbacks to them. Lastly, in terms of tools, I'd add one in that's very simple and would have self-explanatory use in stealth, and that's a remote-activated Teddy Moo. Because we need some kind of use for this stupid doll. It's basically just a distraction for anyone in a 10 or 15 meter radius, with everyone in that radius looking at it while it's active. This is mostly to have more options in terms of distractions, but also being a way to fully capitalize on the whole Teddy Moo thing from Shopping Spree. That doll was everywhere! Ugh. When looking over the changes stealth needs, they really center around a couple things, with those being more ways for the player to have agency within the heist in terms of their ability, and transparency with their toolkit, but also with reducing the instant failure mechanics. There are still quite a few instant failure mechanics I'm not going to change, like guards firing their gun after you've masked up and catching you, being caught on camera while masked, etc. This is because in a lot of stealth games, going loud is the punishment for failing stealth, while in Payday, it's the exact opposite. Going loud and ignoring stealth can be one of the big appeals of the game with all the cool and wacky builds you can make, but that shouldn't be at the expense of stealth either. With a simple retooling of the pager and searching mechanics, it would make it so that if the player actively engages with keeping stealth going, the game will allow them to do so. Stealth as it is in Payday 3 is already fun, but it feels lesser compared to how the loud side of the game is treated. With changes like this, it would hopefully lessen the gap between the two gameplay styles while making stealth more fun for the people that really want to engage with it. If there are any changes you want the stealth system to make, leave them in the comments below. It's interesting to hear everyone else's thoughts on this as well. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I hope you take care.